This is what Islam says about dinosaurs. I actually get this question sometimes by people. Hey, are dinosaurs mentioned in the Quran? Are aliens mentioned in the Quran? What does the Quran say about the dinosaurs? So this will be interesting. Let's have a look at this one.
So the question always comes, especially for people that believe in creation and things of that sort, what about the dinosaurs that were here before human beings? Do we even believe in dinosaurs? What about the disgusting little creatures and critters? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create them? And what do we have to say about them?
There's wisdom behind everything.
First of all, the most beneficial aspect when you're speaking about the creation of the animals is that which relates to us. And what that means is, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala said, Allah created us as human beings between the angels and the animals. And so you have angels that have absolutely no desire, no will. Their sole purpose is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their sole existence is just to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so they're free from those desires. And then you have on the other side, the animals, on the far end of the other spectrum, the animals who don't have those, who don't have reasoning and don't worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way that the angels do.
The way that the angels do. I was about to say, is he going to say that they don't worship Allah? No, animals also worship Allah. But do animals have those kind of reasoning? I think some scientists say that they mostly go by instinct. However, when you look at like some animals like cats, monkeys, dogs, there are forms of reasoning maybe, but it's very, very low. I'm not even sure if that is like if that can even nearly be compared to human reasoning, but they have some animals have lower form of reasoning, because you can teach them what's wrong and right? Like that's how you train certain animals, like how you can train cats, dogs, monkeys, right? Where if they do something that's right, they get a reward. If they do something that's wrong, they get a punishment. So do animals have reasoning? I would say to some degree they do, because you do get to train some, right? And then they can tell what's wrong and what's right. So they are reasoning in situations, right? So yeah. It's a lower form of reasoning. It's not like as developed as with us humans, for sure.
And they're just full of desires, unrestricted desires. And
okay, that's true with the desires, yeah.
We find ourselves in between. And what that means is, if we incline towards our desires more, our unrestricted desires more, then we become like animals.
Yeah.
And if we incline towards worship and reason, then we become like the angels. And in fact, as human beings, we have the potential to be better than the angels, as we'll talk about,
Allahu Akbar.
When we choose to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when we choose to use our reason and our intellect in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have the potential to be worse than animals, because the animals are not held accountable because of the missing reasoning and things of that sort. And so it's important for us to find ourselves in that spectrum. Where do we fall? Do we fall towards the soul that is at peace, the nafs that is at peace, the nafs al-mutma'inna, or a nafs al-bahima, the animal-like self, which is just territorial, desires intimacy and food and drink and so on and so forth. Now, when we talk about the chronological order of creation, Islam actually does clearly say that animals were created before human beings. This is established in authentic ahadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that Adam alayhi salam was the last of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, and we'll talk about that inshallah ta'ala.
Yeah, but that makes sense, right? Like imagine the first human is created and there's nothing, no food, no water, no air, no nothing. Of course, like the human being must have come later. You have to prepare at least a foundation for a human being to, for example, survive or something, right? Like, it's like it's like you're trying to plant a seed into thin air or something. You need first the soil, you need the water, and you need the sun or something, right? So you always need something in order for something else to strive from that, or stay alive with that or something, right? So of course a human being needs food and drink and all that, right? So yeah.
Going forward. And in that is a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided everything, has placed everything at our service, that when we come into existence as human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already created the scene.
Yeah,
it's
the
already
surroundings.
There.
Yeah.
Allah Azza wa Jal also says in the Quran, in Surah Luqman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ بِغَيْرِ عَمَدٍ تَرَوْنَهَا وَأَلْقَى فِي الْأَرْضِ رَوَاسِيَ أَن تَمِيدَ بِكُمْ وَبَثَّ فِيهَا مِن كُلِّ دَابَةٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that He created the skies, the heavens without pillars that you see. And He's cast into this earth firmly set mountains so that it keeps it stable. And He spread throughout this earth all types of creatures. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually makes that clear in the Quran as well. Dabba means beasts, means any type of creature that you can imagine. And so we know that before we got to this earth, there were, all kinds of dinosaurs, beasts, and that's one of the crimes of the jinn, is that they didn't treat them well, as we spoke about previously. And you had roaches as well, and some of those disgusting little critters that existed. Actually, even before the dinosaurs, scientifically they think that roaches existed millions of years before the dinosaurs. And so you ask yourself, why? Alright, so if we establish that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them there before us, and that there's benefit to them, why do we have roaches? Why do we have rats? Why do we have all these disgusting little creatures?
They are food for other animals.
SubhanAllah, when it comes to roaches, I grew up with roaches. I had roaches all over the place growing up. I remember there were times that I wouldn't actually go to the kitchen because I knew that there were going to be roaches there after 10 o'clock. That was their time and they took over.
Wow.
So, especially with roaches, I guess this was...
That actually happens to me sometimes when I travel to certain places. I remember when I went to the Canary Islands for vacation, and I didn't want to walk sometimes at night. Oh, Taiwan. I remember Taiwan even. But yeah, Taiwan was the same. If you walk at night sometimes on the street, you have to be careful where you step because it could make like a sound like, and that means you stepped on a roach. The same in the Canary Islands. There was this one place I was visiting. It was at night. And I think, was there a restaurant or something nearby? I forgot, but there was some place where like a lot of people are also gathering. And there's like this one street and there's no light. There's like literally no light. And I walked and then I heard a sound suddenly like, and I looked, I used my phone, put some light there, and I stepped on a freaking roach. And I was like, that is so disgusting. They're just everywhere at night in some places. Yeah, and in Taiwan was the same when I was traveling there. Like, at night they come out. You see them in the parks and everywhere.
Especially with roaches. I guess this was a theological crisis for me. Why are there roaches in the world? Now, the simple answer to that is that Allah made all of these animals as a form of rizq for you, as a form of sustenance for you. And He made them a form of sustenance for each other.
Yeah.
And He made the insects sustenance for them. Okay, so you find that when a bird is alive, and subhanAllah, things change, circumstances change. When a bird is alive, it feasts on ants, it eats ants. When the bird dies, the ants eat the bird. Right, so these animals and these creatures are sustenance for one another. They're rizq for one another, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has it in perfect balance. And there are things that are even beyond our understanding.
So, talking about the roaches, and yeah, if people step on roaches in Taiwan, for example, you will see a lot of ants come and eat the dead roach. So the roaches are actually the food for the ants, right? And the ants are the food for the birds. So there's like a cycle, a food chain, you could say, right? Like one animal eats the other, and that animal that eats the other is the food for the other. But if you remove one of the food chain animals, you actually have a problem because suddenly everything collapses, right? Because what if the ants cannot find food anymore and they don't have insects to hunt, or they don't have like some honeydew from insects or something, right? So what do the ants eat, right? And then what do the birds eat? Because there's suddenly nothing anymore, right? What if there were no worms, no ants? What do birds eat, right? And then birds are also being eaten by something else, like maybe by bigger birds or something, right? Like, if you look at it, like there's always some sort of cycle and some sort of ranking where one animal eats on one and then the other one eats on the other one. Like even in the sea, it's crazy. You have like small fish eat way smaller fish, but the small fish are being eaten by like medium-sized fish. The medium-sized fish are being eaten by the large fish and such on, right? It's fascinating.
So when it comes to the roaches, their most powerful role in the ecosystem, of course, is decomposing. And we don't really see that, but they pick up dirt. There would be a lot more dirt in the world without them. Yeah, they eat rotten foods and they eat decaying material. and through their waste it's put back into the soil and it's made beneficial, and bacteria is cleared, and so on and so forth. Meaning, subhanAllah, that even those things that to us are simple, are nuisances, there is a purpose. They play a greater role in this balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Al-Mizan, the way that He's made everything just and balanced in His creation. There is a role for everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't create a single insect, a single animal without purpose. And subhanAllah, we find that the animals actually see things that we are incapable of seeing. And we spoke about this when we talked about the limitations of human beings and things of that sort. But you'll find, the color spectrum even, that there are some animals that subhanAllah, it's not even the distance of sight. When they look at something, our color spectrum is far more limited than them, meaning they're able to see light and they're able to see different colors that we wouldn't even know existed, even though they'd be looking at the same surface. And the reason why I bring that up is that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that they are able to see things of al-ghayb, of the unseen, that as human beings we're not able to see. And the Prophet ﷺ gives us something beneficial in that regard. He says, ﷺ, that when you hear the crowing of the rooster, فَاسْأَلُ اللَّهَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ فَإِنَّهَا
angel just was there. Yeah.
When you see the crowing of a rooster, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His blessing.
Because it just saw an angel.
Rooster has seen an angel. And the Prophet ﷺ said, when you hear the braying of a donkey, then ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for refuge.
Because of shaitan.
That donkey, فَإِنَّهُ رَأَى شَيْطَان. That donkey has seen a devil. So subhanAllah, these animals, even
they can
from their
see
noises,
things,
there's a blessing for us. There's one of the...
Yeah, the animals, they see stuff that we can see. They can see jinn too. Like, have you ever been wondering why there are like sometimes situations where like there are, for example, dogs, right? And they just randomly start barking, right? Like, I hear this sometimes where like people tell stories that at night or certain times their dog suddenly barks. It can be daytime, like for no reason, just start barking, looks at the wall or something, right? Or out of the window and there's nobody, but the dog is barking. So it's like the animal saw a ghost or something. It's because it saw a jinn or an angel. That's why.
Animals, even from their noises, there's a blessing for us. One of the times of accepted dua is the time when a rooster crows, because the Prophet ﷺ says that it's seen an angel, it's seen a light source that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created that we are incapable of seeing. Now, something else that we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us through these animals is that taking care of these animals, can either be our ticket to paradise or it could be our ticket to hellfire.
Yeah.
And this is something very powerful, because the Prophet ﷺ mentioned to us the woman that was actually a prostitute, a zania, and she came across a dog that was thirsty, and she felt compassion for that dog, and so she took her shoe and she filled it with water, and she gave water to that dog. And subhanAllah, I often ask myself, if the Prophet ﷺ said that Jannah was given to that woman for the sake of that she was forgiven for her sins, and Jannah was given to her on the basis of that, what would most religious people do? They'd say, if a dog came by, this is najas and that, this is impure, they try to kick it out the way and so on and so forth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this woman Jannah for giving water to it.
Yeah, and there's a similar story with, this is not a dog but a cat that was locked in a cage by a woman. And this woman was a believer, if I'm not mistaken. And what happened is she did not let the cat go out to catch prey, to catch something to eat. And because of this, the cat died in the cage and the woman was sent to Jahannam for this. So yeah, there's like an opposite hadith, but it's not with a dog, it's with a cat, where a cat starved because it was kept in a cage. And yeah, this is like why we have to be merciful to all living creatures as Muslims. We have to respect animals. We can't torture them or harm them in any way, because this is a major sin.
A dog. And Allah subhanahu wa
Big sin,
ta'ala
you don't
gave
kill
another
life.
woman hellfire because she imprisoned a cat, as the Prophet ﷺ said, not allowing the cat to fetch its own food or drink and not giving it any food or drink. And so these are sources of rahmah for us. They're sources of mercy. They could be our ticket to paradise. And as a believer, I should look at it in an optimistic sense. And I shouldn't think to myself at any moment that there are many human beings that are dying today. Why should I even be worried about the animals? Because the Prophet ﷺ was concerned about the birds. Even on the way back from a battle, Rasulullah ﷺ heard the complaint of a bird whose egg was taken from its nest. So the Prophet ﷺ actually stops the companions and shows compassion to those birds. So there's no point in life where we should stop caring about the animals, where it becomes an either or thing. Islam teaches us that, the earth will testify for us or against us. What about the animals? And of course, what that means is we should be even more kind and considerate towards human beings and things of that sort. Now, there are certain interesting facts that the Messenger ﷺ mentioned to us as well about taking care of certain animals and the effect that it has on our personalities. Scientifically, taking care of certain breeds, brings a sense of compassion. It nurtures compassion in a human being. Cat owners tend to be more sensitive and compassionate, and that's why you find Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the sweet personality, maybe that had something to do with it, the way that...
That's actually true, and it helps also children. So if you're a parent and you have a child and you want to teach your kids to be responsible, you can also help them learn this by giving them a pet that they have to take care of. And you need to watch as a parent strictly, like is your daughter or your son feeding the animal, maybe brushing their hair, or if you have a cat, right? And doing everything that the kid should do, a responsible job, taking care of the animal. Because that way, if they grow up learning this from a young age to take care of animals, or if you're a farm owner, right? You're a farmer and you have farm animals, you have like maybe some cows or horses, and the child helps with that. In the future, the child will grow up to be a responsible individual that can also take care of the family and help there. Like, this is something very good for the development of an individual, to actually keep animals, to, like for farming reasons, or to just have a pet cat or something. It's definitely good.
The sweet personality, maybe that had something to do with it, the way that he was with cats. And the Prophet ﷺ told us about the different types of animal breeders and the personality traits that they might develop. So he said, ﷺ, that there will come a time when the best property of a man will actually be his sheep. And what he's talking about, ﷺ, is in the time of fitan, of great tribulation, that the safest person is the one who can take his sheep, just take some sheep with him, and go to a place where he's free from all of that corruption and all of that tribulation. So it's actually a form of rizq for him, particularly. It's a form of sustenance for him, particularly in a time of fitna. And he said, ﷺ, that you tend to find pride and arrogance amongst the owners of horses and camels.
Yeah.
So he said, those Bedouins that are busy with the camels and the horses, they don't have time for their deen, they don't have time for their religion. While he said that humility and gentleness are the characteristics of Ahlul Ghanam, the people that own sheep, the shepherds of sheep. And the Prophet ﷺ, of course, told us that all of the prophets at one point in time were shepherds. Rasulullah ﷺ, his first career was as a shepherd. Now, the last thing that we take...
There's actually some wisdom behind that too, because if you are a shepherd, you have to take care of a group of sheep, right? You need to guide them, you need to protect them from harm, lead them a safe route, right? For example, you're going somewhere and there are like, let's say, mountains, and there are like holes everywhere or something, the sheep can like fall down the mountain or something. You want to go a safer route, right? Or if there are like wolves coming or some creatures like that can attack it, maybe lions or something, you have to be able to protect your sheep and make sure they don't go into a place or a direction where harm can come. So being able to guide so many animals at once, like this definitely will help you also if you have that skill to guide humans, right? Because you can also look at us like sheep, right? We are sheep that need guidance or something, right? We need also a source of protection and guidance, like, which way is the right way, for example, right? So there are like some parallels here, right? So yeah, it's beautiful. Like, I actually love that, like, the prophets, peace be upon them, they were shepherds at some point in their life, because this is like training for the time when they actually lead humans, right? Let's first lead sheep and later let's lead humans.
Here, and I get asked this question all the time about animals is, can I have my pet in Jannah? Can I have animals in Jannah? Or is it that we just go to Jannah and there are no more animals?
Because you can wish for everything there, right?
A great sense of attachment to animals. Now, obviously, they are free from, from accountability, eternal accountability. So they don't have Jannah and Nar, paradise and hellfire, in that sense. However, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiallahu anhu, he narrates that a Bedouin came to the Messenger ﷺ, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, I love horses. Will I get to have horses in Jannah? I love horses. Do I get horses in Jannah? And the Prophet ﷺ said, if you are admitted into Jannah, أُوتِيتَ بِفَرَسٍ مِّن يَاقُوتَ, you'll be given a horse of rubies. And that horse would be brought to you with 2 wings, and it will carry you wherever you want it to carry you. So yes, you can have animals in Jannah as well if you love them that much. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enter us into Jannah, to be able to have those animals. Allahumma ameen.
Wow. And yeah, about dinosaurs, so it's actually interesting because I actually looked into this as well, because there's something a lot of people are forgetting that actually get into this topic with dinosaurs in the Quran. Did you guys know that Adam alayhi salam was like way taller than us, and that the first human beings were like giants? Like literal giants. We have authentic sources that state even like the height. Let me actually look, because I don't know by heart how high actually Adam alayhi salam was. But it was 60, here, 60 cubits, which is equivalent to 40 meters or 90 feet. So Adam alayhi salam was about 90 feet tall. Now imagine you have human beings that are 90 feet tall, 40 meters. This is huge, like a house. Very big, right? So what do those human beings eat? You must have giant animals, right? So were there dinosaurs in the Quran? You can say indirectly, right? Because what is a dinosaur? It can even be a big bird or something, right? Like there were like other prehistoric creatures that evolutionists claiming there be. There were like giant fish, this and that. If you look at like the height of Adam alayhi salam, right? Adam was 40 meters tall, 90 feet. Then of course the animals, they must have been huge, some of them, right? Because how can you roast something on the fire, right? That you just hunted? That is small and get full in your stomach. It has to be a big animal. So yeah, this is also how like I try to explain to some people, like, hey, if Islam is the truth, then how comes that there are scientists claiming there were giant animals, but us humans, we were always there? Then I have to explain that to this person that the humans were not always that short, that we actually used to be giants on this dunya, right? So yeah. It's actually very fascinating, because a lot of people are forgetting this aspect too, that Adam alayhi salam was like 90 feet tall. But yeah guys, if you are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this one a thumbs up. And I will see you guys next time, inshallah.